No child should have to go through abuse. The Children's Justice Center is a place where families can come and get justice. The Children's Justice Center, a place where a child can be comfortable and safe, a place where their voice is heard.
Let's have a place where children who have been abused can go and meet, those individuals they would need to meet if we're going to prosecute the case, all at one place, instead of having to go meet people across town one place and then across town again someplace else.
When I started working here, I really didn't know, when I applied for the job, I knew what I was getting myself into, but I didn't know how passionate I'd feel about it. I interview child victims of felony level crimes.
90% of our cases are sexual abuse cases, right? So I get kids as young as 3 years old. We can do support things for the family, and that's a very important piece, but there's no justice then for the victim if the person just walks off and can do it to someone else, and then of course they can go do it to someone else, and that just perpetuates the cycle.
In my career, and I'm working on 37 years in law enforcement, in my mind, when I pull up an ugly picture or something that has bothered me more than anything else I've ever done in law enforcement, it always deals with a child. We have specially trained, specific detectives that work investigating child crimes only.
So this room is our 5 and under room. So all victims who are the age of 5 or under, I will bring them into this room. It's more colorful, it has a smaller table, smaller chairs, it's just more child friendly. And I just start a conversation with them. Most of the time, what they've told their parents is a tiny bit about what happened. So I'm the first person that they really tell their full side of things to. My whole goal is to make the child feel comfortable so that if they're ready to disclose, then they're comfortable telling me about that.
One of the detectives is back here. We're observing the interview through the window. It's being recorded here on the computer, and we're able to see what's going on, hear the interview. When she needs to take a break or when we need to ask her a question, she'll come back here and we'll discuss the interview, where we need to go, what additional information we need, and then she'll go back in and she'll go ahead and take care of finishing the interview for us. On average, I do around 30 interviews a month. It's pretty rare that I go a day without an interview. And sometimes the abuse is so, it's happened so frequently over such a long period of time that you can't really fit it all in one interview. When we see a case that is in the news, or you hear something on the radio, or you see something on the internet about a sex offender and they got convicted, that is literally one of thousands.
The Children's Justice Center serves Clark County, and last year received 1,974 reports of suspected felony abuse crimes. Last year, CJC completed 334 criminal investigations, and 201 perpetrators of criminal child abuse were sentenced to a total of 480 years of confinement time. Desperately need the support of society, desperately need the support of our donors, desperately need the support of everybody to be able to combat this, to continue the work that we do and save these kids.
And it's because of donations to the center that we now have this. We have someone who's an advocate who's bilingual.
I take all the Spanish cases here at CJC. It's about 50 cases that I have. Most of the people never been to anything like this, so we usually need to explain step by step.
I've always said there's a special place in heaven for those people that can work day to day dealing with some of the worst things that can happen to the children in our community.
Improving something that was started out horrible and now maybe make it a little bit better, at least by, having the victim feel supported, getting justice for the victim, and hopefully stopping a perpetrator from harming anybody else.
Went into court hundreds of times with children, and children are just amazing. They are very strong. They're much more resilient than we give them credit for being. I think we know that, but then in the face of this, you think, oh, I don't want them to have to go through this, and I appreciate that, and I don't want to have them go through it. But sometimes we have to go into court, and when we go into court, amazingly, most children I bring into court, they're just awesome. They go in, they sit down. We've talked to them ahead of time about the fact that the person who's the perpetrator is going to be in the same room, but they're over at the side. We try to set up things so that the advocate is sitting in a certain place, and the child knows they can focus a certain way and perhaps not really have to look at their perpetrator. This works really well for a lot of kids. Some kids, it's terrible what happened. They just being in the same room with that person shuts them down.
Most people don't want to talk about child abuse because it's not a pretty subject, and nobody wants to think that it's happening in their neighborhoods, in their schools, with kids that they know.
I remember as a young police officer, even over my radio, I could hear the screaming in the background as dispatch was giving me the call. And I could tell by the sound of it, this is bad. And to arrive there and be able to intervene, only to find children cowering in a corner of a bedroom, 3 of them together, and not being able to sort out at first what was going on, but once getting enough people there that I could go sit with the kids and see big nick marks in the wall where one of the children told me their father had taken a big meat cleaver and was mad at them for being loud and was swinging down like he was going to hit them with this big meat cleaver and chipping the wall and throwing sheetrock dust around the room. And then the kids showing me where he had whipped them with a coat hanger and it left marks on them. And I was just starting to boil. Only the hair standing up on my arm, even talking about it 30 years later. Only to have the children tell me where he hid the stuff prior to me coming in the house. And that one of them had been hung out the second floor window by his ankles above the driveway. And that was a child I heard screaming over the air from a neighbor who was calling in through dispatch. And to get them, the bottom line was, I was able to maintain myself enough. I wanted to hang the father out the window by his ankles. That's how angry it made me, and how emotional it was, and I was able to pull myself from that, knowing that those children needed to be protected, and we were able to do that. But when I see that kind of thing, I just can't imagine how anybody could do that to a child.
So the Children's Justice Center wouldn't exist in its format today if it wasn't for people donating not just time but money to help with the resources that make this such a functional entity.
And we do need a lot of help because we're a nonprofit agency.
As someone who's been involved in the center off and on for, well, decades now, I have seen the changes, I've seen the growth of the center. What I've seen is that because of volunteers, because of donations, the center has improved.
We look to the community to help us in any way that they can, and some people that's simply opening up their checkbook and dig deep, and just know that that money will be used wisely to protect the kids.
The Children's Justice Center exists only because of continued community support. And with your support, it will continue to be a place where the abuse stops and the healing begins.